Hey there, everyone, and welcome to Pour and Explore, a wine, food, and travel podcast. I'm your host, Nick Elliott, the wine guy. I'd love to be your go-to guide for all things wine, food, and the amazing places they take us. Here on Pour and Explore, we'll sip, savor, and wander through the exciting world of wine, discuss incredible cuisines, and uncover the stories behind unforgettable destinations. Each week, I'll bring you lively conversations with wine experts, chefs, travel pros, and fellow enthusiasts. We'll share practical tips, hilarious tales, and plenty of inspiration to fuel your next adventure. So grab a glass, pull up a chair, and join me as we pour, explore, and celebrate the good life. Let's dive in. All right, friends, welcome back to Pour and Explore, the podcast where wine meets adventure. Now, I'm a little sad. I originally had planned on recording this episode from the banks of the Garonne River in Bordeaux on my most recent trip to France. Got back last week, and unfortunately, we had so much fun and so much to do that I had zero time to record a podcast episode. So you've got me from my cozy little office in San Diego on this overcast, rainy, thunderstormy day here in SoCal. But nonetheless, we're going to have a great episode because today we are talking about terroir. What the heck is terroir? You hear this word thrown around in the wine world all the time, right? But what does it actually mean? In this episode, we're going to dig into it. What terroir is and what it isn't, why the same grape tastes different in different regions depending on where it's grown and how it's grown and what it's grown in, which we'll get to in just a few minutes. Some iconic examples from regions around the world and how you can start to taste terroir without needing a super refined palate. Because here's the thing, terroir is just what makes wine alive. It's what makes it a story of a place and not just about a beverage. So let's dive in. What is terroir? Let's start with the basics. The word comes from the French word terre, which means land. But terroir is more than just dirt. It's everything natural that influences the grape and ultimately the wine. We're talking about the soil type. We're talking about the climate and the amount of rainfall in a particular area. We're talking about the sunlight and the slopes of a vineyard. We're talking about the altitude of a vineyard. We're talking about wind patterns. And we're even talking about the microbial life in the soil that make up the word terroir. All of these factors combine to create the grape's unique fingerprint and ultimately the very unique wine. Now, in Bordeaux, for example, Cabernet Sauvignon thrives on the gravelly soils near the left bank, which help with drainage and ripening. Meanwhile, Merlot dominates on the right bank, and that's where clay and limestone create softer, rounder wines. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. The terroir, especially in this area, is the soul of the wine. It is nature's signature on the wine. Let's use a fun analogy. We're talking about France. I just got back, and trust me, I had plenty of these while we were over there. We spent a few days in Paris before we went down, took the train down to Bordeaux and got on a boat and traveled all around the Bordeaux wine region with my wife and a bunch of like-minded enophiles, just loving every little sip and drop and taste that we got to see along the way. Let's use the analogy of a baguette. Imagine a baguette, same recipe, same ingredients. Now you bake one of those baguettes in Paris and you bake one of those baguettes in San Diego. They are going to taste different. Why? The water, number one, the flour, number two, the air, the oven, and even the baker's hand is going to have an effect on how the final product is going to taste. Wine is the same exact way. You can grow Cabernet Sauvignon in Napa and you can grow Cabernet Sauvignon in Bordeaux, but they are going to come out very differently. Why? You guessed it, terroir. Let's take a little virtual trip around the wine world and look at how terroir tells a different story in each region. Let's go from the west coast of France and head over to the east side of the country where you find the region of Burgundy. You know, this region, very much like the other growing regions in France, is all about the land. It's all about the terroir. It is the birthplace of the idea that even small changes in slope or soil can drastically change the outcome of the wine. Now, Pinot Noir and Chardonnay are grown here, and they act like clear glass. They show terroir vividly. I mean, it stands out in every single sip. You make the comparison between Clos de Vougeot and Corton, vineyards that are just feet apart, and they produce wines that are completely different personalities. It's absolutely fascinating and fantastic. So interesting. You know, you've got some of the most amazing and expensive vineyards, wines made from these vineyards, coming out of that region as well. We all know about Romani Conti, and right next door is one of their competitors, and in the high-end Burgundy production, Echezeaux, they're just a few feet from one another. They're both creating beautiful, beautiful wines, and on the high end, of course. But the wines are not dramatically different, but they're definitely different, even grown right next door to one another. So another great example for you is here in the States and Napa Valley. Napa Valley has volcanic soils, lots of sunshine, and dramatic temperature swings. So on the valley floor, you're going to get lush, ripe fruit, and as you head up the sides of either of the mountain ranges on either side of that valley, you get a tighter structure and bolder tannins out of the same exact grape, the same exact clone of grape. It's absolutely a very, very cool thing to experience. Same grape, different spot, different story. Now, heading down to New Zealand in the southern hemisphere, it is one of the world's southernmost wine regions. Cool climate, rocky soils, long summer daylight hours, and the Pinot Noir here is bright and it's floral and it's highly acidic, and you taste the place in every single sip that you get from a Pinot Noir coming from this region. So every region has a voice. Terroir just gives that voice a microphone. It amplifies what the land is telling us, what the air is telling us, what the soil is telling us, the climate, and of course the people who stick their hands in those vines and on that wine every single day, producing amazing, amazing things, and vastly different from spot to spot. Now, Nick, can I really taste terroir? So here's the question. Can we actually taste it? The answer is sometimes. You don't need to be a master somm to start noticing what the qualities that the land will put onto a wine. So here are a few things that might help. First thing I want you to do is taste wines side by side from the same grape from different places. Let's go back to some of my favorite examples. Pinot Noir from France, we're going to call that red Burgundy, and Pinot Noir from an awesome producer in Willamette Valley, Oregon. So if you can get your hands on, a nice bottle from each of those places, I'm sure you can, depending on where you live. They're pretty much readily available in most wine shops. I want you to taste those side by side. I want you to taste the difference. Really see what these things are doing. Now, of course, a lot of it can be winemaking. We are talking about human intervention, of course, but most winemakers, in my experience, really don't mess with their wines too much before they put them out there. Now, of course, that's not true for every producer out there, but most of the time, especially the smaller producers, and especially French producers, they're not going to put a whole lot of human interaction into the winemaking other than getting the fermentation and the bottling, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to nerd out about it too much. Just the point that I'm making is you're going to get two wines that are made from the same grape and are going to taste vastly different. I want you to choose the wines with minimal intervention, like I'm talking about. Less oak, less sugar, and of course no additives besides the usual sulfites, things like that. And this information you're going to be able to get either from the internet or from the owner of your local wine shop. Don't go to the grocery store. You've heard me say this before. Don't go to the grocery store and get your wine. Go to a wine shop, buy your wine from someone who knows what they're talking about. And I want you to let yourself notice the textures, the minerality, the energy of those two wines that you're tasting side by side. Here's another DIY tasting challenge, that you can do. Try 3 different Syrahs. Let's try one from France in the Rhone region, one from Australia, you might know that as Shiraz, and one from California. Ask yourself, which is the most peppery, which feels warmer or cooler, and which one has the most earthiness. These are all things that you are going to pick up as you're tasting these wines side by side. It's a lot of fun to do. Do this for your next family gathering or dinner party, or heck, just do it in the kitchen by yourself. It's really a lot of fun. All of the clues that you get, from tasting these wines is going to be the influence of terroir. So moving into the modern wine world, the idea of terroir is both an ancient concept, going back thousands of years, but it's also an evolving concept. Climate change is shifting the terroir boundaries. I don't care what side of the political climate you fall on, but I can tell you, as someone who's farmed grapes, someone who has made wine over the years, and someone who continues to get out there and see what's happening in the world. Climate change is real, people, and terroir is changing along with it. Burgundy is getting hotter. England is making great sparkling wine, and Napa is dealing with droughts and wildfires. These are all things that are going to affect, moving forward, how we enjoy wine and what wines we enjoy. And at the same time, winemakers are being more intentional about farming, which I think is amazing. Organic and biodynamic vineyards are becoming more prevalent in the wine business. And I just want to have a little side note here when we're talking about that. I'm going to do a whole show on this, but I want to make sure that we understand as consumers that most wineries. I'm not saying all, I'm saying most. A preponderance of wineries out there do grow their wine organically, somewhat sustainably, and to a lesser extent biodynamically. But you might not find it on the bottle. And why is that? The answer to that question is that being certified as organic or biodynamic or sustainable is expensive. It's expensive to do it. It's expensive to keep your credentials. And it's all done through third-party organizations that will give you the stamp of approval. But I believe a winemaker if they tell me that they're growing sustainably or organically or biodynamically. I don't need a label or a sticker on the bottle to tell me the difference. All right, I'm going to get off my soapbox. We're talking about regenerative farming, and a focus on sustainability and preserving the uniqueness of their land. So terroir is not static. It evolves just like we do. And, as I was floating past Bordeaux's vineyard-lined riverbanks, and getting out there on the road and seeing the beautiful things that I was able to see in different spots, higher elevation, lower elevation, hilly elevation, next to a river, not next to a river, I'm telling you that terroir is very real, and you can feel it, not just taste it. Absolutely, absolutely amazing. To the recap, terroir is the natural influences on the place and on wine. It's what gives wine character. It's what gives it depth. It's what gives it identity. And it turns every single bottle of wine into a story of soil, a story of sun, wind, and time. If you want to experience terroir yourself, go taste wine from new places. That's my number one goal, is I want to make sure that you are out there enjoying the world of wine, and in most cases, you don't even need to leave your town to do so. Go taste wine from new places. If you're lucky enough to be able to get out there and enjoy, absolutely go do it. Wine is being grown in all 50 states here in the U.S., so there is going to be a winery within just a couple of hours from you, if not right around the corner. So definitely go do that. Try a side-by-side tasting at home. As I mentioned earlier, whether that is the same grape from 3 different places, or perhaps the same grape from the same vineyard in different years, to see what the effect of the climate has on those wines over the years. And get out there and ask questions. When you're traveling, you're visiting wineries, don't just enjoy the wine, be curious about it. Why the winemakers made the decision to do this or that. Talk to them about the soils. Talk to them about how they treat terroir in the making of their wines. And hey, I have created a free terroir tasting map that you can download, or that I will send to you. I just want for you to say the word terroir over in social media or comment on this podcast, and I will go ahead and email that to you. That is my free gift to you for listening to this episode and hopefully enjoying it. So again, get my free terroir tasting map by using the word terroir in the comments here on the show or on one of my social media channels. If you've had a terroir moment, a glass of wine that just transported you to another land, I would love to hear about that. Tag me on Instagram or connect with me on TikTok. Let me know about your story, and heck, we might even feature your story on an upcoming episode. You never know. So until next time, from drizzly, thunderstormy San Diego, not the banks of the Garonne River in Bordeaux, which was the plan, but you know what? I'm happy to be home. It was a fun trip, but definitely happy to be back. Folks, keep wondering and wandering. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you again next week. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Pour and Explore. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your stories, and your questions, so you can drop me a line at cheers@thewineguy.vin. That's cheers@thewineguy.vin. Or let's connect on TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. Grab those links on my website at thewineguy.vin. Until next time, let's keep wondering and wandering. Cheers, everyone.